All right, everyone, welcome to the 613, part 11. So we've made it to part 11. You know, Yeshua, when he comes back, he says that he will separate the sheep from the goat, and he will put the sheep on the right side and the goat on the left side. And it's just so nice to see how many people are sitting on the right side, right? However, the scriptures say that everyone is righteous in their own eyes. And you know, the problem is that we tend to see things from our own perspective. You know, from your own perspective, you're sitting on the right side, but from his perspective, very few are sitting on the right side. So this is why we need to see things through his perspective. We need to look through the law, because this is his heart. And this is why we're doing this series. It's not an easy topic, but it's really just for you all to him. And to really try to see life through his perspective, not our own righteousness. So far, we have seen 544 out of the 613. And so we have 12% left to see, and I do hope that we will get through them in this very teaching. So today we will talk about the dietary laws, specifically which animals are allowed for consumption and which animals are prohibited by the scriptures. These laws often become a stumbling block for Christians, especially when confronted with the idea that pork is prohibited. Unfortunately, a great number of people, Christians, consider these laws as burdensome, outdated, and absurd. However, did Yahweh really instaure these laws merely to be an inconvenience to us? Is he simply a strict overseer over our life, denying us enjoyment? Or perhaps our Creator, in his infinite wisdom, knows what is truly best for us. So despite this, many Christians still see the law as a burden. They fail to recognize that Yahweh did not impose these restrictions arbitrarily, but rather to serve and protect those who follow him. These laws exist not to limit us, but to provide us guidance and blessing to those who observe them. So in this teaching, I think you will get a little bit of a better picture of why it is so. Dietary laws are a very good example of how we get blessed from following the law on a literal level. However, among the Jewish community and certain Messianic assemblies, sadly, there is a tendency to view these laws not as guides meant to serve humanity, but rather as obligations to be upheld at all cost. Instead of recognizing their intended purposes, they have begun to serve the law itself. In an effort to prevent the law from being broken, they have constructed barriers around it. So, in doing so, they risk missing the purpose of the law. We are not meant to exist merely to uphold the law, rather to receive wisdom and the guidance it offers. This is precisely the message conveyed by Yeshua when he said that the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. Likewise, dietary laws are there for our own well-being, not so that humanity would be bound by them. Since many of us here come from a Christian background, maybe Catholic, maybe evangelical, it is essential for us to break free of these 21st century conceptions and try to see things from a Hebrew perspective. You know, the Bible, it was written in Hebrew, by Hebrews, for Hebrews. If we, in the 21st century, seek to live as Yeshua lived, we need to be willing to understand that Hebrew mindset, because Yeshua, he was a Hebrew. And the word does tell us to walk as he walked. We should want to strive as much as possible today to keep or uphold the behavior or the lifestyle that the righteous Israelites were walking in. As Christians, we must be open to letting go of the misconceptions about our faith. We must be willing to critically examine and dismantle any flawed theological beliefs. It is necessary to rebuild our faith upon the true word of Yahweh rather than human interpretation. On that matter, let us reflect on the words of Yeshua. He says, "Any man who, hearing his words, do them, will be like the wise, who founds his house on the established rock. But he who hears my word and does not do them is like a fool who builds his house on the sand. Then there came the rain and the winds and the torrents, and they made it fall with weight." Yeshua was the wisest man to ever walk the earth, even surpassing the wisdom of Solomon. He imparted teachings promoting the enduring relevance of the Torah, emphasizing that his followers were still expected to follow its commandments. Let's see here. Matthew 23, 1-3. Then Yeshua said to the people and his disciples, Talmidim, "It is said, the scribes and the Perushim, the Pharisees, have ascended into the seat of Moses. All that they say to you, you must keep and do. However, you must not do according to their works, for they say and do not do." So, some of you might know that the seat of Moses was a designated place in the synagogues where the one sitting in it could only read from the Torah, from the law. He was not able to add anything, any commentaries, and he was not able to remove any words. If he wanted to place a commentary, he had to step aside, close the Torah scroll, and then give his commentary. So Yeshua, he says to his disciples that they must do everything that they tell you when they are in that seat. In other words, you must do everything in the Torah of Moses. Unfortunately, many Christians read this passage without truly grasping its meaning, likely because they have not received the wisdom and the understanding from the Ruach HaKadosh, the Holy Spirit. I was also guilty of this once. I read the whole New Testament when I came to faith, and I did not understand that the law was still good for Christians. However, because I desired to live a life that pleased my Creator, I chose to obey what he commanded in his word once it was presented to me. And I got to give it to him because he's the one who will open your heart to receive these instructions. You know, in the other day we were in a Bible study, and I have expressed that in the 3 years, more or less, that I have been in the faith, I have tried to convince many Christians about the law. I've tried to share, and I think I do it pretty well, but I don't think I have convinced anyone so far, yet. So, you know, it really doesn't depend on you. It depends on the Spirit that will open the heart of someone to receive instruction. A lot of people don't like to be corrected, you know, and this is a form of correction. The flesh certainly doesn't want to be corrected. So that's why it takes the Spirit, the Ruach, to open your heart and receive correction and instruction. We need to be submissive to our Creator, because He's not coming to get a rebellious wife. He's coming to get His bride who purified herself for Him. Submissive, just as a bride should be. So because I wanted to please my Creator back then, I decided to let go of eating bacon. Some of you have already heard that, but before embracing Torah, I loved bacon, eggs, and sausages, you know. It's not a secret. I would go every morning in the restaurant just like this guy, and I would go with my Bible, and I would order by myself, sitting by myself, a big plate with 3 sausages, bacon, 3 eggs, and a coffee, and I would open my Bible, start reading from it, and slowly eating. And it's ironical because I would be reading exactly the parts that would prohibit us from eating this food. So I was kind of condemning myself there. But when I came to the understanding that these foods are to be untouched or unconsumed, it was more important for me to please my Creator than indulging in bacon and sausages. But over time, as I let it go, for years I didn't have some, but over time I learned that, hey, guess what? Beef bacon tastes and feels just like pork bacon. And chicken sausages, breakfast sausages, they feel and taste just like pork breakfast sausage. So that's amazing, right? So that's amazing. I just want to underline this. But now I can buy English breakfast while reading my Bible and actually obeying its teachings at the same time. All right? So we're going to go through the dietary laws in this teaching. But instead of doing it in a bullet point like I have done it before, I'm going to read straight from the scroll, basically from the Torah. Because the dietary laws, they're all grouped up in the same page. So we're going to go through that page in this teaching, and it's not going to be reinterpreted. It's going to be straight from the scriptures. All right. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying to them, "Speak to the Israelites, saying, these are the animals that you may eat, all the animals that are on the land, and among the animals that have hoof and split cleft in the hoof, such you may eat. However, these you may not eat from those that chew the cud, and from those that have divided hoof. The camel, because it is a chewer of cud, but does not have a hoof that is divided, it is unclean for you. And the coney, because it is a chewer of cud, but does not have a hoof that is divided, it is unclean for you. The hare, because it is a chewer of cud, but it does not have a hoof that is divided, it is unclean for you. And the pig, because it has a divided hoof and has a split cleft in the hoof, but does not chew the cud, it is unclean." I think I'm missing a part in there. When I prepared this teaching, the title was up there, and you can see it's not finished. We'll have to go with it. So, I invite you to read this Leviticus 11, go through all of it after this teaching, all right, and see for yourself. But in 2025, you know, we must observe the law with reason and practicality, because since the Torah was given to Moses roughly 3,500 years ago, we need to assess which laws can still be observed today and which one cannot. However, some laws may no longer be applicable due to changes in societal context. For laws where the context has remained the same since they were given, we must continue to observe them as they were given to us. For example, a pig 3,500 years ago is still the same pig today. Its nature has not changed over time. Therefore, pigs are still not to be considered as food, as we have just read. The dietary laws remain clear and should be followed in 2025. There is no justification for disregarding them. All right, did you know that consuming pork poses significant health risk due to natural biology and dietary habits of pigs? So I listed a few reasons to avoid them, and those are facts. All right, so I'm just going to read through them so you have, and excuse me if I butcher these words, those are scientific and medical terms. Trichinella parasites. Okay, so pigs can harbor Trichinella spiralis, a parasite that causes trichinellosis, leading to muscle pain, fever, and severe health complications if consumed undercooked pork. Tapeworm. This tapeworm can cause cysticercosis and disease, where larvae from cysts in human muscles, the brain, and other tissues, potentially leading to seizures and neurological issues. Hepatitis E virus, HEV. Pigs can carry HEV, which can be transmitted to humans through undercooked pork, causing liver inflammation and health problems. Multiple worm infestation. Pigs can host various worms, including roundworms, whipworms, lungworms, and kidney worms, which can pose health risk if consumed. Toxoplasma gondii. This parasite, commonly found in pigs, can cause toxoplasmosis, a disease that may lead to flu-like symptoms and severe complication in immunocompromised individual. Sarcoptic mange. Pigs can suffer from sarcoptic mange because by mites that leads to skin irritation and lesion, which can spread to humans through direct contact. Bacterial contamination. Pork can harbor harmful bacteria like Salmonella, E. coli, and Yersinia enterocolotista, which can cause food poisoning and other illnesses. Let's just say that. Swine flu virus. Pigs are susceptible to various influenza virus that can mutate and potentially spread to humans, leading to flu outbreaks and environmental toxins. So pigs are known to consume a wide range of food, including waste, which can lead to an accumulation of toxins in their bodies, potentially affecting humans' health. That was a mouthful? Yeah, that was a mouthful, right? So do you want to have your mouth full of that full? Of course not. That's disgusting. So giving these compelling facts, it is clear that avoiding pork is not just a matter of religious observance. It's scientifically supported that it is a good decision for your health and disease prevention. You know, us men, we tend to want to put the Bible on trial. For anyone who doubts that the Bible was given by our Creator, consider this. How could Israelites from 3,500 years ago know about these health risks in pork and other forbidden animals? Identifying the danger and risk of eating such animals, it requires advanced scientific methods in order to know that. Technology just wasn't available at the time. Yet, the Hebrews were instructed to avoid it long before science could confirm its harmful effects. This is further evidence that the law remains relevant today and should not be dismissed as outdated, even after 3,500 years since it was originally given to Moses. All right, now let's continue. And yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened here. I'm missing a part, so I'm not going to be able to finish all of the readings when I read through the scriptures. So Leviticus 11, 9 to 12. These you may eat from all that are in the water. Any in the water that has fin and scales, whether the sea or in the stream, such you may eat. But any that does not have fins and scale, whether it is in the sea or in the streams, among all the water swarmers, among all the living creatures that are in the water, they're detestable to you, and they shall be detestable to you. You must not eat of their meat, and you must detest their dead bodies. And now we're missing a couple verses here. Just as pigs and camels are considered unclean and potentially harmful to our health, so are certain sea creatures. They are prohibited. The Torah instructs us to avoid consuming certain sea creatures because they're not meant to be eaten as food. They actually have an ecological purpose. These creatures, they act as the janitors of the sea, helping to maintain the ocean's cleanliness. As bottom feeders, they consume decaying dead animals, organic waste, and they also feed on various forms of trash that settle at the ocean floor. Despite their role in filtering marine debris, they are often sold in upscale restaurants as delicacies. Additionally, many of these sea creatures are known to carry parasites, posing potential health risks. Here are 5 facts about shellfish. So they pose a high risk of foodborne illnesses. Shellfish, especially raw varieties like oysters and clams, can carry bacteria, viruses, and toxins that cause foodborne illnesses. People with weakened immune systems, pregnant women, and young children are particularly vulnerable. Mercury and heavy metal contamination. Many shellfish accumulate mercury and other heavy metal from polluted waters. Long-term exposure to these contaminants can lead to neurological and developmental issues. Allergy reactions. So shellfish allergies are among the most common, and severe food allergies. Reactions can range from mild discomfort to life-threatening. I'm not going to pronunciate this word. Filtering, feeding, and toxins accumulation. Shellfish are filter feeders, meaning they absorb toxins and pollutants from their environment. This makes them more likely to contain harmful substances that can affect human health. And finally, parasitic and viral infections. Shellfish can harbor parasites and viruses that are difficult to eliminate through cooking. Consuming contaminated shellfish can lead to distress and health complications. All right, so once again, our Creator, He is the embodiment of love. And when He says not to do something, it is not to restrict us from these pleasures. These shellfish, they're sold in upscale restaurants, and they are sold actually expensive. So this conditioned people to think that, wow, this must be so good, right? It's kind of reverse psychology. But these shellfish, they're very bad for you. And we have prohibition in the Torah. I know that I couldn't read it because the part was not on the screen, but it does prohibit shellfish and other type of fish that has no scales or no fins. And, He just loves us so much that even before technology could confirm it, He prohibited these foods for His people to eat. However, everyone else that is not in covenant with Him, they would be exposed to all what I just read. All the people who were not obeying the law, you saw it. It didn't, that was a mouthful. And they were full of parasites. So parasites lead to cancer, they lead to diseases and all kinds of things that you wouldn't want your child to have, right? So this is why we call him our Father. His restrictions, they come from a place of deep love. He wants to protect us. He cares so much for us that he doesn't want us to suffer unnecessarily. Nowadays we have so many diseases and we wonder why, right? The children are born with disease. But it's because through generations and generation we have been told that the Torah is not to be observed anymore. And you have generations and generations of people eating unclean food, dangerous for their bodies. So that's just part of the problem. Later we will see another part of the problem that is even greater than physical health. All right, now let's continue. And these you must detest from the birds. They must not be eating. They are detestable. The eagle, the vulture, the shortened-toe eagle, and the red kite and the black kite according to its kind. Every crow according to its kind. The ostrich and the short-eared owl, and the seagull and the hawk according to its kind, and the little owl, all kinds of owl and vultures. And it goes on. So I just want to remind you all, actually, let's read straight from the scriptures. Thank you so much. I think it's going to be a lot more efficient because I'm missing verses here. All right. So Leviticus 11, 13 to 18. Okay. The red kite, and the raven, the horned owl, the screech owl, the gull, and any kind of hawk, the little owl, the cormorant, the great owl, the white owl, the desert owl, the osprey, the stork, the heron, any kind of heron, the hoopoe, and the bat. All right? In the dietary laws concerning the birds, we are specifically told which one we can eat and which one we cannot eat. So based on this guidance, it is safe to assume that any kind of bird that is not explicitly mentioned here is permissible and safe for consumption. You know, by now, I hope I don't have to repeat myself to explain why we have these laws. It's for our own benefits, and we must want to obey them. All right, now, let's examine which insects are permissible for consumption and which ones are prohibited. Surprisingly, certain bugs are allowed for consumption, you know. In the Gospels, we see that John the Baptist's diet included wild locust and honey. And while I wouldn't necessarily recommend following his lead on this particular thing, the Bible does give us the freedom to decide if we want to eat bugs or not. However, just as every other living creature, we still have some restricted bugs and some that are allowed. All right. So we'll continue reading. It's I'm just not going to put it on the screen. I'm just going to read straight from here because I think we saw the pattern here. That it's not going to be on the screen completely. So all flying insects that walks on all fours are detestable for you. Yet you may eat from all winged creeping things that goes on all four, which have legs above their feet, with which to hop on the earth. You may eat from any kind of locust, any kind of katydid, any kind of cricket, and any kind of grasshopper. But all winged creeping things that have all 4 feet are loathsome to you. Moreover, let me just go there. Okay. Moreover, By these also you will become unclean. Whoever touches their carcasses shall be unclean until evening. Whoever carries any part of its carcass is to wash his clothes and will be unclean until evening. All right? So I just want to clarify something very important here. When you read, will be unclean until evening, it is very important to make the difference between unclean and sin. So when the Torah states that a person becomes unclean, such as in the case of touching a dead insect, this does not mean that you have committed a sin. A person can be ritually unclean while remaining guiltless of sin. Likewise, the opposite is true. Someone can be in sin while still being ritually clean. The distinction between cleanliness and uncleanliness is something that the first century Israelites were deeply concerned about and always aware of in their daily lives. This status determined whether a person could enter the temple or be restricted from doing so. However, regardless of one's intent to enter the temple, the Torah does command you to wash in order to become clean. So I trust that everyone understands the relevance of this commandment to wash, right? Even today, by the smell, I can tell that most of you understand this commandment. But it's actually what baptism is, you see? Baptism was not invented by John the Baptist. It comes from the Torah, actually. It's called immersion. And in Hebrew, it's called mikvah. So the concept is to purify yourself in water from uncleanliness. Actually, what John the Baptist brought forth that was new is to be baptized for the remission of sin. Now, people before, what they were doing, they were getting baptized to become from unclean to clean. But what John the Baptist actually did there is that he poked in the first century Israelite mind to make them understand that just as being unclean did not allow you to enter the temple, so does your sins do not allow you or to receive in your temple the presence, the Spirit of Yah. And basically what John the Baptist was doing is that he was preparing the Israelites to receive Yeshua, the one who could wash away their sins once and for all. All right. So let's continue. Okay. Leviticus 26 from 28. So every animal with a separated hoof but not split, or does not chew the cud, is unclean to you. Everyone who touches them will become unclean. So whatever moves on its paws among all animals that goes on all fours is unclean for you. Whoever carries their carcasses is to wash his clothes and will be unclean until the evening. They are unclean for you. Okay. So, as we have seen, carnivorous animals and scavengers that walk on all four paws, they often consume decaying matters, dead animals. Is the likelihood of disease transmission. Avoiding them minimizes exposure to harmful pathogens. The command to wash your garment after touching these animals, they reflect an advanced understanding of hygiene, promoting cleanliness to prevent disease spread. These principles remain applicable today, as many restricted animals are still known to be carriers of parasites and toxins, reinforcing the protective nature of Yahweh's commandments. Let's continue. Okay, so Among the creeping things that creeps on the earth, the following are unclean to you: the weasel, the rat, any kinds of great lizard, the gecko, all kinds of lizards, okay? Among all that creeps, these are the ones that are unclean to you. Whoever touches them when they are dead will be unclean until evening. Whatever falls on them when they are dead will become unclean, whether it is a vessel of food or clothing or skin or sackcloth. Whatever vessel it is with which any work is done, it must be put into water, and it will be unclean until evening. Then it will be clean. Now, if any of them fall in a clay pot, everything that is in it will become unclean, and you are to break it. Any food that may be eaten but has water on it from such a pot will become unclean. Also, any drink that may be drunk in any such spot will become unclean. Everything on which part of their carcass falls will become unclean. An oven or stove for pots is to be broken into pieces. They are unclean and will be unclean to you. Nevertheless, a spring or cisterns for collecting water will be clean. Through anyone who touches their carcass will become unclean, though anyone yet. If part of a carcass falls on any seed for sowing that has yet to be sown, it is clean. But if water is put on the seed and part of a carcass falls on it, it is unclean to you. So, it's important to recognize that these laws were given for our own benefits. You know, would you like it if you went in a restaurant and they did not respect these laws right there? Of course not, right? These are basic sanitary guidelines. If a restaurant is found not to obey these laws, a health and safety inspector can come and shut the restaurant down. It's incredible to see how Yahweh's sanitary laws are so advanced. Even when they were given like so long ago, thousands of years ago. So wouldn't it be reasonable to consider that if his laws on sanitary, like if his sanitary laws were so advanced and are still good for us today, wouldn't it be safe to assume that all of his law is so advanced and still good for us today? Actually, in Psalm 119, verse 8, it says, "The Torah of Yahweh is perfect." Changing it would alter its state of perfection. So this is why we need to keep the Torah with all our hearts, not only because we love our Father and we want to obey Him, but also because we trust that He knows what is best for us. Amen? All right. Let's continue here. If any animals that you may eat dies, the one who touches its carcass will become unclean until evening. And he who eats of its carcass is to wash his clothes and will be unclean until evening. Also, the one who carries its carcass is to wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. All right? Again, it's the same concept that applies to the dead animals that we have seen earlier, that they are not to be touched. Every creeping thing that crawls on the earth is detestable. It shall not be eaten. Whatever moves on its belly and crawls on all fours, or has many feet among all the creeping things that crawls on the earth, these are not for you to eat, for they are detestable. You are not to contaminate yourself with any creeping things that crawls, nor make yourselves unclean with them or be defiled. For I am Yahweh your Elohim. Therefore sanctify yourself and be holy, for I am holy. You are not to defile yourselves with any kind of creeping things that moves on the earth, for I am Yahweh who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your Elohim. Therefore you shall be holy, for I am holy. This is the Torah of the animals, the birds, every living creature that moves in the water, and every creature that creeps on the earth, to make a distinction between the unclean and the clean, and between the living thing that may be eaten and those that are not to be eaten. So, Yahweh is holy. He desires his people to be holy. Just as no unclean animal were to enter the temple, what sense does it make for us to put unclean animals, now that we are the temple, in our temple? The same applies for our own bodies. We are the temple of Yahweh. We cannot claim to be his while rejecting his clear instructions. If these animals are not to be eaten, then that means that Yahweh thinks it's gross to eat them. Now, do you want Yahweh to think that you are gross? Of course not. And actually, Peter instructs Peter instructs his followers, the followers of Yeshua, to be holy in all their conducts. But just as he who called you is holy, so be holy in all that you do. For it is written, be holy, for I am holy. The command to be holy appears multiple times in the Torah. In Leviticus 19 includes this commandment among other important commandments, such as honor your mother and father and love your neighbor as yourself. And also in Leviticus 11, as we have just read. Holiness is not just about actions, it extends to all aspects of life, including dietary restrictions. The truth is that our King is returning soon. When he comes, he will not tolerate people that rejects his law. You know, a king, it rules over his people. And in order to rule, you need to have rules, what it means. And with that authority as a king, it comes with the responsibility to enforce his rules. To disregard his rules is called rebellion. Throughout history, rebellion has always carried the capital penalty, death. This is why we must not rebel against our King. You must honor his laws even today. In Isaiah 66, 16-18, it says, by fire and his sword, Yahweh will execute judgment on all flesh, and those slain by Yahweh will be many. Now this is talking about the future. It's talking about when he will execute judgment on all flesh. Has not happened yet. Those who consecrate and purify themselves to enter the groves, that means Christians, right? Those who strive to purify themselves, following after one in the midst who eats swine flesh, vermin and mice, will come to an end altogether. It is a declaration of Yahweh, for I know their works and their thoughts, and it will come about that I will gather all nations and tongues, and they will come and see my glory. Now, for those who are familiar with eschatology, this is talking about the return of Yeshua. He will come, he will judge the earth, and what it says here is those who purify themselves, but yet, even though they strive to be holy, to be sanctified, they're still eating swine flesh. This is pig. And Yahweh, he says, they will come to an end altogether. I will destroy them, in other translations, that's what it says. So, if you want to have a place in the world to come, you must align yourself with the practices that are instructed in the Torah, including dietary laws. Yahweh has explicitly stated that he will not tolerate such actions, and this is why the dietary laws are not merely about physical health on earth, but it also is deeply concerning our spiritual health. So, forgot to change it, but yeah, that's a pretty good picture, right? Yeah, I should have been there before. Okay, so congratulations, everyone. We have now finished the 63 laws, right? So, however, I must confess that I may have forgotten. I'm only human. It is a tedious task to go through the 613 laws. Some people interpret it differently. Some people say there's not 613. Some people there's a lot more. Some people they say, no, it's 613. So depending on how you interpret the law, there may be more or less. However, this series is not over yet. As you can guess from the picture, there will be a part 12 of the 613. However, we have finished going through all of the laws, or more or less. It will be enough for now. But in the 12th part, we will go over what it means for us to keep the law. And also, I want to go over some things that I have found out by going through this series, some misconceptions about the Torah, just to wrap it all in. And also, I want to go over the blessings and the curses that the Torah will offer us for those who keep them. Because as many Christians misunderstand, law is not a means of salvation. We're not obeying it to be saved, but rather it is really there for bless those who keep it, and it will curse also those who reject it. That's all for today.